Jake Mitchell sat on his old couch in his small apartment, watching television when his phone buzzed with a notification email. The subject line made him laugh out loud. DNA results ready, from Galactic Genes Inc. He had almost forgotten about the test kit his friends had bought him as a joke 3 weeks ago. The guys at the construction site had been talking about all the weird alien DNA that sometimes showed up in human tests ever since Earth joined the Galactic Federation 50 years ago. Most people got boring results, like 0.1% Altarian, or some trace amounts of common alien species that had mixed with human colonies. Decades ago, Jake grabbed his laptop and logged into the website, expecting to see the usual human ancestry breakdown with maybe a tiny bit of something interesting to show his buddies at work tomorrow. What he saw instead made him drop the laptop. The screen showed his normal human DNA at 99.4%, but there were two other entries that made no sense: unknown species alpha at 0.2% and unknown species beta at 0.1%. Both entries had red warning symbols next to them and a message that said, "Contact customer service immediately." Picked up his laptop again and stared at the screen. The warning message blinked at him in bright red letters. He had never heard of unknown species showing up on DNA tests. Usually the computers could identify any alien DNA in their massive databases. This had to be some kind of mistake. Jake called the customer service number and waited through 20 minutes of hold music before a nervous-sounding woman answered. "Hello, this is Rebecca from Galactic Genes Customer Service. You are calling about case number 7749, correct?" Jake had not given her any case number. "Yes. I got my results today, and there are some errors on my report." "There are no errors, sir. Your DNA contains genetic markers from 2 species that our computers flagged as extremely rare. We have already forwarded your information to the Galactic Federation, as required by law, when these particular markers appear." "What do you mean forwarded to the Federation?" Jake asked, but the line had already gone dead. He spent the next hour trying to call back but kept getting busy signals. Every time he refreshed his email, the DNA results page showed the same impossible information. He tried researching the unknown species codes online, but found nothing that night. Jake could not sleep. He kept checking his phone and looking out his window, expecting something to happen, but everything remained normal. The next day at work, he told his friend Danny about the weird results. Danny laughed and said the computers probably glitched. "Maybe you are part robot or something," but Jake knew something was wrong. When he got home from work, there were 2 people in dark suits waiting by his apartment door, a tall woman with short brown hair and a shorter man with glasses. Both looked very official. "Mr. Mitchell, I am Commander Lisa Barnes with the Federation Liaison Office, and this is Dr. Maya Patel from the Genetics Department. We need to talk." Jake unlocked his door and let them inside. His hands were shaking as he offered them coffee, which they both declined. Commander Barnes sat across from him, while Dr. Patel opened a tablet computer. "Mr. Mitchell, your DNA test results triggered several alerts in our system. The genetic markers you carry are from 2 royal bloodlines that we believed were extinct, the Elvari and the Zephyrian Empire." Jake stared at them. "Royal bloodlines? That makes no sense. I am just a construction worker. My family has been in Colorado for 4 generations. Dr. Patel looked up from her tablet. "The markers do not lie. Your great-great-grandfather was named Robert Mitchell, correct? He was part of the colonial expedition to the Kepler system in 2187. "Yes, but what does that have to do with anything? During that expedition, your ancestor helped 2 alien species during a war that nearly destroyed them both. The Elvari and the Zephyrians created genetic bonds with certain human families as a form of treaty and gratitude. These bonds were designed to activate if their royal lines were ever threatened with extinction." Commander Barnes leaned forward. "Both species are now facing that exact situation. Recent conflicts have reduced their royal bloodlines to just a few individuals. According to their ancient laws, any person carrying their genetic markers has claim to succession rights regardless of species." Jake felt dizzy. "This is crazy. I cannot be some kind of alien royalty. Dr. Patel showed him her tablet screen. Your genetic markers are not just from any members of these species, they are from the direct royal lines. You are legally considered a prince of both the Elvari Kingdom and the Zephyrian Empire. But there is more, Commander Barnes said. The genetic bonds your ancestor created included marriage contracts that activate with succession rights. You already have legal wives from both species. Jake jumped up from his chair. Wives? I never married anyone. Dr. Patel nodded. The contracts were made to ensure the continuation of the royal bloodlines. Your wives are Princess Lirelei of the Elvari and Lady Zara of the Zephyrians. They have been waiting for a genetic match to appear. This gets stranger, Commander Barnes continued. Using advanced genetic preservation techniques, the Elvari created a child from your genetic material combined with essence from both your wives. The child has been waiting for you to claim your inheritance. Jake sat back down hard on his couch. A child, you mean? I have a daughter. The child is 6 years old and has been raised by both species. Her name is Emma. She has abilities from all 3 genetic lines, including yours. Jake put his head in his hands. This cannot be real. People do not just become alien royalty because of a DNA test. Dr. Patel closed her tablet. I understand this is overwhelming, but the genetic bonds are legally binding under Federation law. Both alien species are expecting you to take your place as their leader. Your wives and daughter are waiting to meet you. What happens if I say no? Jake asked. Commander Barnes and Dr. Patel exchanged glances. The succession laws are clear. If you do not claim your inheritance within 30 days, both species will consider their royal lines extinct. This could destabilize the entire sector and potentially start another war. Jake looked around his small apartment at his simple life. Everything he knew was about to change because he had taken a DNA test as a joke. 3 days ago, his biggest worry was whether he had enough money to fix his truck. Now he was apparently married to 2 alien princesses and had a 6-year-old daughter with superpowers. Commander Barnes stood up. We have a transport ready to take you to Federation Station, Omega 7, where you can meet your family. Your wives have been preparing for this moment for years, Dr. Patel added. The child Emma has been asking about her human father. She knows about you and wants to meet you. Jake realized he had no choice. Even if this was all some elaborate mistake, he could not risk starting an interstellar war by refusing. He thought about Emma, a 6-year-old girl who considered him her father even though they had never met. How long do I have to decide? He asked. Need to leave tomorrow, Commander Barnes replied. The Federation Council wants this resolved quickly. Both alien species have enemies who would take advantage of any delay in the succession. Jake nodded slowly. All right, I will go, but this is the strangest thing that has ever happened to anyone. Dr. Patel smiled. Actually, Mr. Mitchell, stranger things happen more often than you might think. The galaxy is full of surprises. That night, Jake packed a small bag, not knowing what to expect. He called his boss and told him he had a family emergency and might not be back for a while. He did not mention that the family emergency involved becoming the ruler of 2 alien empires. As he lay in bed for what might be his last night on Earth, Jake wondered what his wives were like and whether Emma would like him. He had never been a father before, and now he was supposed to be a father to a child with alien abilities. The next morning, Commander Barnes and Dr. Patel returned with a sleek Federation transport. Jake took one last look at his apartment and followed them outside. His normal life was over, and his new life as an accidental alien prince was about to begin. The transport lifted off and headed for orbit. Jake watched Denver shrink below him and wondered if he would ever see Earth again. His phone buzzed with a message from Danny asking if he was okay. Jake typed back a simple reply. Going on a trip. Talk soon. He had no idea how to explain that he was flying to meet his alien wives and daughter. The DNA test that was supposed to be a joke had changed everything now. Jake Mitchell, construction worker, was about to become Jake Mitchell, prince of 2 alien empires, whether he was ready or not. The Federation station was massive beyond anything Jake had ever imagined. The transport docked at a port that stretched for miles in every direction. Aliens of dozens of species walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Commander Barnes led him through security checkpoints, where scanners confirmed his identity and genetic markers. Your family is waiting in Diplomatic Suite 7, Dr. Patel explained as they walked. They have been preparing for this meeting for months. Jake felt nervous sweat on his palms. He was about to meet two alien women who were legally his wives, and a daughter he had never seen. The whole situation felt like a dream that had gone too far. The doors to the diplomatic suite opened automatically. Jake stepped inside and saw the most beautiful room he had ever entered. The walls showed holographic views of space, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a palace. 3 figures stood waiting for him. The first was clearly not human, but looked almost like the elves from old Earth stories. She had long silver hair that seemed to glow softly and wore flowing robes in shades of blue and green. Her ears were pointed, and her eyes were large and violet-colored. When she moved, it was with perfect grace. The second woman was different entirely. Her skin had a purple tint, and she was taller and more muscular than most humans. She wore what looked like armor, but made from materials Jake did not recognize. Her hair was black with streaks of silver, and her eyes were bright yellow. She stood like a soldier, ready for battle. Between them was a small girl who looked mostly human but had the pointed ears of the first woman and the unusual eye color of the second. Her hair was brown, like his own, but had silver streaks running through it. She wore simple clothes, but carried herself with confidence that seemed unusual for a 6-year-old. The elf-like woman stepped forward first. Jake Mitchell, I am Princess Lirule, Starweaver of the Elvari people. I have been waiting to meet you for a very long time. Her voice had a musical quality that made Jake think of wind chimes. The way she spoke was formal but not cold. She seemed genuinely happy to see him. The purple-skinned woman came forward. Next, I am Lady Zara Nightwind of the Zephyrian Empire. Your genetic line calls to mind through bonds forged in battle and sealed in honor. Her voice was deeper and stronger. She spoke like someone used to giving orders, but Jake could see kindness in her unusual eyes. The little girl ran forward and stopped just in front of him. Hi, Daddy, I am Emma. I have been waiting to meet you forever. Jake knelt down so he was at her eye level. She looked so much like him around the nose and chin, but her other features came from her 2 mothers. Hello, Emma. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Too. Can you really lift heavy things like Mommy? Zara says. Emma asked. Her eyes were bright with curiosity. I work in construction, so I lift things every day, but probably not as heavy as your mommy. Emma giggled, and suddenly Jake felt lighter, like gravity had lessened around him. She was using some kind of power without even thinking about it. The adults spent the next few hours talking while Emma showed Jake her toys and books. She could speak 3 different languages and could make small objects float in the air. When she got excited, the gravity around her would change slightly. Literally explained Elvari culture to Jake. Her people valued harmony with nature and had technology that worked with living systems instead of against them. They lived for hundreds of years and made decisions by thinking about consequences that would affect many generations. The Elvari have been watching human development for 50 years, Lirale said. We admire your ability to adapt and solve problems in ways we would never consider. Zara told him about Zephyrian society. Her people were warriors who believed in honor and strength. They had powerful technology for defense and warfare, but also valued loyalty and protecting those who could not protect themselves. Humans fight differently than we do, Zara said. You use strategy and tools, where we use strength and courage together. Our peoples could be very powerful. Jake learned that both species were facing problems that threatened their survival. The Elvari had suffered from a plague that affected their reproduction rates. Their population was declining. Despite their long lives, the Z had been fighting wars for decades, and many of their warriors had died in battle. Both royal families had used ancient genetic magic to create bonds with Jake ancestors, hoping that someday a human heir could help them survive. The genetic bonds meant that Jake was not just married to Lirale and Zara, but was connected to them in ways that went beyond normal relationships. Emma was proof that the bonds worked. She had inherited abilities from all three species: human adaptability, elf connection to natural forces, and Zephyrian physical strength. Even at 6 years old, she was already stronger and smarter than most adult humans. During dinner, Jake watched his new family interact. Lirelei and Zara had been working together for years. To prepare for this moment, they clearly respected each other, despite coming from very different cultures. Emma switched easily between calling them Mommy Lirelei and Mommy Zaratha. Little girl had been raised knowing about her human father and was excited to finally meet him. She asked Jake hundreds of questions about Earth and human customs. She wanted to know about his job, his friends, and what humans did for fun. "Do humans really build things that tall?" Emma asked when Jake told her about skyscrapers much taller than that. Jake replied, "Some buildings have over 100 floors." She looked amazed. "Can I see them someday?" Jake looked at Lirelei and Zara, who both nodded. "Of course, you can see Earth, Emma. You are part human, so it is your home too." After Emma went to bed, Jake sat with his wives and tried to understand his new situation. Both women were clearly intelligent and capable leaders. They had been preparing for his arrival by studying human culture and language. "I know this is difficult for you," Lirelei said. "We did not choose this situation either, but we have learned to make the best of it." Zara was more direct. "The bonds between us are real, whether we like it or not, but I have come to respect you already. Your people helped mine when we needed it most." That means something. Jake realized that despite the strange circumstances, he was starting to like both women. Lirelei was thoughtful and wise, while Zara was strong and honest. Emma was clearly happy and well cared for, but there were problems. Both women explained to him. Neither the Elvari nor the Zephyrians were entirely happy about having a human as their new leader. Some members of both species thought humans were too primitive to rule over them. Lord Shadowthorn leads the Elvari opposition. Lirelei said he believes humans are beneath us and should not be involved in our government. General Korath Steelclaw feels the same way about Zephyrians. Zara added, "He thinks you are weak because you are not a warrior." Jake felt overwhelmed. "I do not know anything about ruling alien empires. I just build things and fix problems." "That is exactly what we need," Lirelei replied. "Our peoples have old problems that need new solutions. Humans are good at finding new ways to do things." Zara agreed. "Your mind works differently than ours." Emma appeared in the doorway wearing pajamas covered with pictures of Earth animals. "Daddy, will you read me a story?" Jake looked at the book she handed him. It was written in 3 languages with pictures of adventures in space. He read the human English parts while Lirelei and Zara helped with the words he could not pronounce, as Emma fell asleep listening to the story. Jake realized that this strange family was starting to feel real. He had never thought about being a father, but Emma made it seem natural. She was smart and funny, and clearly loved all her parents. "Tomorrow, we will begin teaching you about your duties as our leader," Lirelei said after they tucked Emma into bed. "We will start combat training," Zara added. "If you are going to lead Zephyrians, you need to be able to fight." Jake nodded, wondering what he had gotten himself into. But as he looked around the suite at his new family, he realized he was starting to care about them. Emma needed a father, and both Lirelei and Zara were counting on him to help their people survive. His simple life in Denver was over now. Jake Mitchell had to learn how to be a prince, a husband, and a father all at the same time. The DNA test had given him a family he never expected, but maybe it was exactly the family he needed. The first month of training nearly killed Jake. Every morning started with combat lessons from Zara, who expected him to learn Zephyrian fighting techniques that their warriors spent years mastering. She was patient, but demanding, and Jake discovered muscles he never knew he had. "Your humans are tougher than they look," Zara said after Jake managed to stay on his feet during a particularly brutal sparring session. Most species would have given up by now. Afternoons were spent with Lirelei learning Elvari diplomacy and politics. She taught him about trade agreements between star systems and how to negotiate with species that thought in completely different ways. The Elvari valued patience and long-term planning in ways that made Jake feel like everything moved too slowly. You must understand that some decisions we make today will affect our children for 300 years. Lirale explained Elvari. Think beyond human lifespans. Evenings belonged to Emma, who was the best teacher of all. She showed Jake how to use Elvari technology that responded to thoughts and emotions. She helped him practice Zephyrian mental disciplines that improved focus and strength. Her abilities were growing stronger every day. Watch, Daddy, Emma said. As she made a chair float across the room, Mommy, Lirale says, I get this from both sides, but humans make it work better. Jake was amazed by his daughter but also worried about her. She was only 6, but already more powerful than most adults. Her hybrid nature gave her abilities that none of the 3 species had ever seen before. The real challenges came from the political opposition on both sides. Lord Valdris Shadowthorn arrived on the station 2 weeks after Jake began his training. The elder noble was tall and elegant, with white hair and cold blue eyes. He looked at Jake like something unpleasant he had stepped in. Prince Mitchell. I use that title only because law requires it, Lord Valdris said during their first meeting. You cannot seriously believe that humans are capable of understanding Elvari civilization. Jake had learned enough about Elvari customs to know that insulting someone during a formal meeting was considered very rude. Actually, Lord Valdris, I think humans and Elvari have more in common than you realize. Both our species care about protecting our families and building better futures. The Elvari noble laughed. A construction worker lecturing me about civilization. How amusing. But Jake was getting better at reading body language. Lirale had taught him that Lord Valdris was nervous about something. Jake decided to find out what Lord Valdris may I ask how your trade negotiations with the Centauri colonies are going. The noble face went pale. How did you know about those negotiations? Jake smiled. Because Lirale taught me to read the economic reports. Your attempts to sell Elvari crystal technology have been failing for 6 months. You need new approaches, but you are too proud to admit it. Human solutions are beneath Elvari consideration, Lord Valdris replied, but he sounded less confident. Jake pulled out his tablet and showed him a proposal he had been working on. What if we offered the crystals as part of construction materials instead of luxury items? Humans have been using crystal technology in building for decades. The Centaurians need better infrastructure, more than they need expensive decorations. Lord Valdris studied the proposal for several minutes. Finally, he said this approach might have merit, but it is far too simple to work. Worked on Earth, Jake replied. Simple solutions often work better than complicated ones. General Korath Steelclaw was even more direct in his opposition when he arrived on the station. He challenged Jake to single combat. According to Zephyrian tradition, I will not follow a leader who cannot defend himself, the general announced in front of the entire Zephyrian delegation. Jake looked at Zara, who nodded slightly. She had been preparing him for this moment. The combat would not be to the death, but it would be public, and the results would affect his standing with all. Zephyrinch fight took place in the station's arena with representatives from dozens of species watching. General Korath was bigger, stronger, and had decades more experience. But Jake had advantages. The Zephyrian did not expect human flexibility and endurance surprised the general. Jake could not match his strength, but he could move in ways that Zephyrian biology did not allow. He used construction techniques he had learned for working in tight spaces to avoid the general's attacks. More importantly, Jake fought like a human instead of trying to copy Zephyrian methods. He used tools and environmental advantages that warrior cultures often overlooked. When General Korath charged, Jake grabbed a support beam and swung himself out of the way, then used his momentum to strike from an unexpected angle. The fight lasted 20 minutes before General Korath yielded. Jake had not defeated him through superior combat skills, but had proven he could think differently under pressure. You fight without honor, the general said, but he was smiling. You used tricks and advantages that no warrior would consider. Jake helped the general to his feet. That is exactly why you need human thinking. We solve problems differently. Perhaps, General Korath replied. There may be wisdom in your methods. The real breakthrough came when Jake solved a problem that had been frustrating both species. For months, the Elvari and Zephyrians were trying to establish a joint colony on a world called Kepler Prime, but they could not agree on settlement patterns. The Elvari wanted to build cities that worked with the natural environment, using organic architecture that would grow over time. The Zephyrians wanted fortified settlements that could defend against attack with clear fields of fire and strong defensive positions. Both approaches made sense for each species, but they could not find a compromise. Jake studied the plans for hours before he realized what was missing. What if we build both? Jake proposed. We put Elvari settlements in the fertile valleys where they can work with the ecosystem, and Zephyrian fortresses on the high ground where they can watch for threats. Then we connect them with underground tunnels that the Elvari can grow using root systems. Lirelay looked at the proposal with growing excitement. The tunnel network would be a living system that could repair itself and grow stronger over time. Studied the defensive advantages. The high ground positions would give us early warning of any attacks, and the tunnels would allow rapid reinforcement. But both women were most interested in what Jake had not said. Directly, the two types of settlements would depend on each other. Elvari would need Zephyrian protection, and Zephyrians would need Elvari resources. Neither side could survive alone. This creates true partnership, Lirelay said, not just cooperate. Forces both sides to work together, Zara agreed. Smart humans make dangerous allies. Zema was proud of her father when she heard about the settlement plans. Daddy solved a big problem that nobody else could fix, she announced to everyone who would listen. But the success made Jake realize how much responsibility he was taking on. Both species were looking to him for solutions to problems they had struggled with for years. His decisions would affect millions of people across multiple worlds. The situation became more serious when Dr. Patel brought him intelligence reports about the Hegemony Coalition. The hostile alien alliance had been watching the succession crisis and was preparing to take advantage of any instability. They have been targeting royal bloodlines across this sector, Dr. Patel explained. If they can eliminate the leadership of both the Elvari and Zephyrians, they can move in and take control of 12 star systems. Jake realized that his strange new family was not just dealing with personal adjustments. They were the key to preventing a war that could devastate entire civilizations. We need to formalize your succession quickly, Commander Barnes advised. The longer this situation remains uncertain, the more tempting a target you become. That night Jake sat with Lirelay and Zara, discussing their options. Emma was asleep between them, having insisted on staying close to all her parents. I never wanted this responsibility, Jake admitted. I just wanted to do my job and live a quiet life. None of us chose this situation, Lirelay replied, but we can choose what to do about it. Zara was more direct. The bonds between us are growing stronger. I can feel your thoughts sometimes, and you understand mine. This is not just about politics anymore. Jake realized she was right. Over the past month he had begun to genuinely care about both women. They were nothing like he had expected. Lirelay was wise, but also playful when she relaxed. Zara was fierce in battle, but gentle with Emma. Both of them were completely dedicated to their people's welfare. Emma stirred in her sleep and reached for Jake's hand even while dreaming. She had accepted him as her father without question, and trusted him completely. The responsibility was overwhelming, but it was also the most important thing he had ever done. Tomorrow, we start planning the formal succession ceremonies. Lirelay said it will make you officially the leader of both our peoples. Are you ready for that level of responsibility? Zara asked. Jake looked at his sleeping daughter and his two wives, who had become real partners in just 1 month. The quiet construction worker from Denver was gone forever. In his place was someone who had to learn how to prevent wars and lead species he barely understood. "Hey, I'm ready," he said, and realized he meant it. The DNA test had changed his life, but he was starting to change too. The attack came 3 days before Jake's formal succession ceremony. Hegemony forces struck both Elvari and Zephyrian homeworlds simultaneously. While most of their leaders were traveling to Federation Station for the coronation, Jake woke to alarms. blaring throughout the station, and emergency lights flashing in the corridors. Commander Barnes burst into their quarters. Both homeworlds are under attack. The hegemony has been planning this for months. They waited until your forces were divided. Jake felt his heart racing as he looked at Lirelei and Zara. Both women were already moving into action. Lirelei was contacting Elvari commanders through her mental link technology, while Zara was putting on her battle armor. Emma sat up in bed looking scared but trying to be brave. Daddy, what is happening? She asked. Bad. People are trying to hurt our families, Jake said, kneeling beside her bed. But we are going to stop them. The situation reports kept getting worse. Hegemony ships had surrounded both homeworlds and were demanding surrender. They had brought enough firepower to destroy entire cities, and were threatening to use it. If the royal families did not yield, we have to choose which world to defend first. Commander Barnes said our combined fleets can break through to one homeworld, but not both. Simultaneously, Jake felt the weight of an impossible decision. If he chose to save the Elvari first, the Zephorians might be destroyed. If he chose the Zephorians, the Elvari could be wiped out. Either choice meant losing half his new family. There has to be another way, Jake said. I refuse to choose between my people. Lirelei touched his arm gently. Jake, there may not be time to save both. World Zara was more blunt. The hegemony planned this. Well, they know we cannot defend two targets at once, but Jake was thinking like a human construction worker, instead of like an alien prince. What if we do not try to defend both worlds? What if we attack the attackers instead? He pulled up star charts. On the main display and studied hegemony fleet positions. The enemy had divided their forces to surround both homeworlds, but that meant their individual fleets were smaller than the combined Elvari and Zephyrian navies. Look at their deployment, Jake said, pointing to the charts. They spread themselves thin to cover both targets. What if we hit them with everything we have, but not where they expect? Zara studied his plan. You want to strike their command ships first? Jake nodded. If we can take out their leadership and communications, both enemy fleets will be confused. We use fast ships to hit their commanders, then withdraw before they can respond. Lirelei was already working on the technical details. Elvari ships have better stealth technology. We can get close to their command vessels without being detected, and Zephyrian ships hit harder, Zara added. Once the Elvari reveal the targets, we can destroy them quickly. The plan required perfect coordination between two species that had never fought together before, but Jake remembered his construction experience, where different crews had to work as one team to build anything complex. We need mobile command platforms, Jake said, something that can coordinate both fleets in real time. I can design something based on construction management systems I have used. Dr. Patel looked doubtful. Jake, you are talking about commanding a space battle with no military experience. Jake smiled grimly. I have managed construction projects with hundreds of workers and dozens of different specialists. This is just construction with bigger tools and higher stakes within hours. Jake was working with engineers from both species to create command platforms that could link Elvari and Zephyrian battle systems. The platforms used human organizational software modified with alien technology. MA helped by testing the communication systems. Her hybrid abilities let her interface directly with both Elvari and Zephyrian computers. She could process information faster than any adult and translate between the different system languages. The little girl was scared but determined. Daddy, I want to help save our families. Jake hugged his daughter. You are helping, sweetheart, but I need you too. Stay safe while we fight. The battle plan was risky, but it was their only chance. Jake would command the operation from a mobile platform while Lirelei coordinated Elvari stealth ships and Zara led Zephyrian assault forces. But just as the fleet prepared to launch, they received the worst possible news. Emma had been taken. Hegemony agents had infiltrated the station during the confusion of the attack. A small team had grabbed Emma from what should have been a secure location. They sent a message demanding that Jake surrendered his claim to both thrones in exchange for his daughter. Safety. Jake felt rage building inside him like he had never experienced before. Someone had taken his child and was using her as a weapon against him. We can negotiate for her release, Lirelei said. but Jake could see the fear in her violet eyes. Zara was already putting on additional weapons. No negotiations, we get her back. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone. We launch the attack as planned, but first we rescue Emma. That is impossible, Commander Barnes, said the hegemony ship. With your daughter is heavily defended, and an enemy-controlled space. Jake studied the tactical display, showing enemy positions. Emma location was on a command ship, deep in hegemony territory, but Jake noticed something others had missed. Their command ship is exactly where we need to strike anyway, he said. If we can get onto that ship, we can rescue Emma, and take out their fleet commander at the same time. The rescue mission became part of the larger battle plan. Jake would lead a small team onto the hegemony command ship, while the main fleets engaged their forces. It was dangerous, but it gave them a chance to save Emma and win the battle. Lirelei and Zara both insisted on joining the rescue mission, despite the risk. She is our daughter, Lirelei said. We will not abandon her, and you will need backup against hegemony warriors, Zara added. They are dangerous fighters. The assault began with Elvori stealth ships approaching the enemy fleets undetected. Jake watched from his command platform as his wife invisible vessels moved into position around hegemony command ships. The coordination between species that had never worked together was perfect. Now Jake gave the orders. Ephirian heavy cruisers appeared from hyperspace and immediately opened fire on the targets Lirelei's ships had marked. Enemy command vessels exploded before they could respond. The hegemony fleets suddenly found themselves without central coordination while the main battle raged. Jake, Lirelei, and Zara infiltrated the enemy command ship, using a combination of Elvari teleportation technology and Zephyrian assault tactics. They fought through corridors filled with hostile aliens using teamwork Jake had never experienced. Lirelei used her mental abilities to confuse enemies, while Zara provided overwhelming firepower. Jake coordinated their movements and found ways through the ship defenses. Using his knowledge of structural engineering, they found Emma in the command center being held by the hegemony fleet admiral. The alien was using her as a human shield, while trying to regain control of his scattered forces. Release the child and surrender, Admiral Jake called out. You have already lost this battle. The enemy commander was a massive creature with multiple arms and natural armor. He held Emma with one arm while trying to operate ship controls with the others. You think you have one human, but killing me will accomplish nothing. The hegemony has other fleets. Jake stepped closer, studying the alien commander. He was big and strong, but he was also focused on too many things at once, just like badly managed construction projects. You are right, killing you would not accomplish much. Jake agreed, but I do not need to kill you. I just need to rescue my daughter. Ma suddenly looked at her father and smiled. Daddy Ketchmesh used her gravity powers to make herself incredibly light and slipped out of the commander grasp, floating toward Jake like she weighed nothing. The hegemony admiral reached for her, but Zara tackled him while Lirelei used her abilities to shield Emma from the chaos. With Emma safe, the team fought their way back to their ship. While the main battle concluded around them, the hegemony fleets were retreating in confusion. Their command structure destroyed, and their surprise attack turned into a rout. Jake held Emma tightly as they returned to Federation Station. The little girl had been brave throughout her captivity, and was excited to tell everyone about her adventure. I knew you would come for me, Daddy, she said. I used my powers to listen to their plans, and I knew you were coming. The victory celebration was subdued, because everyone understood how close they had come to disaster. But both Elvari and Zephyrian populations saw what Jake had accomplished. He had refused to choose between his peoples, and had found a way to save both. More importantly, the battle had proven that humans could lead both species effectively. Jake's tactical thinking and organizational skills had made the difference between victory and defeat. Lord Valdris approached Jake during the celebration. I owe you an apology. Prince Mitchell, your methods may be unconventional, but they are effective. General Korath was more direct. You fight like a human, but you think like a leader. I am proud to serve under your command, but the real reward was seeing his family safe. Emma fell asleep in his arms, while Lirelei and Zara planned the reconstruction of their damaged homeworlds. The crisis had brought them closer together, and proven that their unusual family could work. "We did well together," Jake said to his wives as they watched Emma sleep. Lirelei smiled. "We are stronger as a team than any of us could be." Alone Zara nodded. "The bonds between us are real now, not just genetic law, but genuine partnership." Jake realized that somewhere during the battle he had stopped thinking of himself as an accidental prince. He had become a real leader who cared deeply about the peoples he served. The DNA test had started this journey, but his choices had made it real. Tomorrow, they would begin the work of rebuilding and strengthening their alliance. But tonight, Jake Mitchell, former construction worker, was content to hold his daughter and sit with his wives, planning a future none of them could have. Imagine 1 year later Jake stood in the new council chambers on Kepler Prime, watching representatives from 3 species work together to solve problems that had seemed impossible just months before. The joint colony had become a symbol of cooperation that other worlds wanted to copy. Emma, now 7 years old, floated notebooks to different council members, using her gravity powers. She had become the unofficial mascot of the Tri-Species Alliance, and took her job as helper very seriously. Her abilities had grown stronger, but she used them mostly for practical things like reaching high shelves and moving furniture. The formal wedding ceremony had taken place 6 months after the battle, combining traditions from all 3 species. Jake wore human formal clothes with Elvari ceremonial jewelry and Zephyrian honor markings. Lirelei had chosen a dress that changed colors, like living crystal, while Zara wore her finest battle armor polished to mirror brightness. Sema had been the flower girl, and had used her powers to make the petals dance in the air above the wedding party. The ceremony was broadcast across dozens of worlds, and became a celebration of unity between species that had once been strangers. But the real work had been rebuilding after the hegemony attack. Both homeworlds needed extensive repairs, and the trauma of the battle had left scars on both populations. Jake had used his construction experience to organize rebuilding efforts that brought Elvari and Zephyrian workers together. The reconstruction became a learning experience for everyone. Elvari grew living buildings that could repair themselves, while Zephyrians built defensive systems that protected the organic structures. Human engineering connected everything with efficient networks that made both types of construction stronger. Jake had established the Alliance Council system that gave representatives from all 3 species equal voices in major decisions. Instead of royal decrees, they made choices through discussion and compromise. It was messier than traditional monarchy, but it worked better for governing diverse populations. Lord Valdris had become one of Jake's strongest supporters after seeing how human methods improved Elvari trade relationships. The noble now served as cultural ambassador, helping other species understand Alliance policies. General Korath commanded the combined military forces and had developed new tactics that mixed Zephyrian strength with Elvari stealth and human strategy. The Alliance military was smaller than traditional armies, but much more effective. The biggest challenge had been adopting war orphans from both species. Dozens of children had lost parents during the hegemony attacks and needed new families. Jake and his wives had legally adopted 12 of them, creating a household that looked like a small embassy. The children ranged in age from 3 to 15, and came from both Elvari and Zephyrian families. Living together had forced them to learn each other's languages and customs. Emma had become their natural leader, despite being one of the youngest. Tommy was a 10-year-old Elvari boy, whose parents had died defending their city. He had natural abilities with growing things, and helped maintain the living portions of their home. Katie was a 12-year-old Zephyrian girl, who had lost her family in a ship explosion. She was incredibly strong, and served as protector for the younger children. Jake had worried about being father to so many children from different species, but he discovered that parenting was mostly about patience and consistency, regardless of whether kids had pointed ears or purple skin. The children attended school together in a program Jake had designed that taught them about all 3 species cultures. They learned human mathematics and engineering, Elvari, biology, and philosophy, and Zephyr in history, and Stratagema helped teach the other children how to use their developing abilities safely. She had become remarkably mature for her age and understood that her hybrid nature made her special, but also gave her responsibilities to help others. Daddy, why do some people still not like our family? Emma asked one evening as Jake tucked her into bed. Jake sat on the edge of her bed and thought about how to explain complicated politics to a 7-year-old. Some people are afraid of change, Emma. They think different is the same as dangerous. But we are not dangerous, she replied. We help people. You are right, sweetheart. But it takes time for people to understand. That change is scary for adults. Sometimes. Seema nodded seriously. I will keep helping people understand that different can be good. The Alliance had grown beyond just 3 species. 4 other worlds had requested to join after seeing how well cooperation worked. The Altarians brought advanced medical technology, while the Centauri colonies offered manufacturing expertise. Each new member species added their own strengths to the Alliance, but also created new challenges. Jake had learned to see diversity as an advantage rather than a problem. Different perspectives helped solve problems that single-species thinking could not handle. The economic benefits of cooperation had surprised everyone. Trade between Alliance worlds had increased by 300% in just 1 year. Elvari biotechnology combined with Zephyrian materials, science, and human manufacturing created products that were better than anything any species could make. A Longic personal life had settled into something that felt surprisingly normal. He woke up early to exercise with Zara, then spent mornings in council meetings with Lirelei. Afternoons were for family time with all the children, and evenings were for planning future projects. His wives had developed their own friendship, independent of their relationship with Jake. Lirelei taught Zara about art and music, while Zara showed Lirelei combat techniques they might need if the Alliance faced future threats. The 3 adults had learned to balance their different needs and personalities. Jake provided practical leadership while Lirelei offered wisdom and patience, and Zara contributed strength and protection. Their marriage worked because each person brought something essential to the partnership. But the real test came when the Hegemony Coalition returned with a larger fleet, demanding revenge for their previous defeat. Jake received their ultimatum. While sitting in a council meeting discussing agricultural policy, they want us to surrender all our territory and disband the Alliance, Commander Barnes reported. The alternative is total war against their entire coalition. Jake looked around the council chamber at representatives from 7 different species who had learned to work together. They had built something worth defending, but war would cost thousands of lives. What are our military options? He asked General Korath. We can fight them and probably win, Korath replied, but the casualties would be enormous on both sides. Jake remembered his construction experience, where the best solutions avoided problems. Instead of just solving them, what if we offer them something? They want more than revenge. The negotiation took 3 months, but Jake's team eventually discovered that the Hegemony Coalition was facing internal problems. Their member species were unhappy with their authoritarian government and wanted more independence. Instead of fighting, the Alliance offered Hegemony worlds the option to join as independent members. Several species defected immediately when they saw how Alliance democracy worked. The Hegemony Coalition collapsed from within, without a single battle. Peaceful resolution made the Alliance a major power in galactic politics. Other regions began copying their governmental system and asking for help with their own conflicts. Jake found himself mediating disputes between species he had never heard. Ovima celebrated her 8th birthday at a party attended by children from 9 different species. She had grown into a confident leader who could speak 6 languages and use her hybrid abilities to help solve adult problems. During the party, Jake watched his daughter organize games that included children with completely different physical abilities. She made sure everyone could participate and had fun, regardless of whether they could fly, breathe underwater, or change color. This is what the future looks like, he thought to himself. A generation of children who see diversity as normal and cooperation as natural. That evening Jake sat with Lirelei and Zara on the balcony of their home, looking out at the lights of New Kepler City. The settlement had grown into a major population center where 3 species lived and worked together. "Do you ever miss your simple life?" Leroy asked Jake. Thought about his old apartment in Denver and his job building ordinary structures. Sometimes he missed the simplicity, but he could not imagine giving up his current family. "I miss knowing exactly what each day would bring," he replied, "but I would not trade what we have built together." Zara leaned against his shoulder. "The alliance is strong because it started with our family bond. If we can make 3 species work as one household, we can make it work on a galactic scale." Amma appeared in the doorway, holding a holographic star chart. She had been studying. "Daddy, I have been thinking about the new worlds that want to join us." "What about them, sweetheart?" Jake asked. "They all have problems they cannot solve alone," Emma said, "but together, we might be able to help them. What if we are meant to keep growing?" Jake looked at his incredibly wise daughter and realized she was right. The alliance had started as a solution to prevent war, but it had become something much bigger. It was proof that different species could build better futures by working together. The DNA test that had changed his life seemed like ancient history now. Jake Mitchell was no longer an accidental prince who had stumbled into alien royalty. He had become exactly the leader his people needed. Someone who could bring others together and find solutions that no single species could discover. Alone as his family headed inside for the night, Jake took one last look at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there other worlds were watching the alliance and learning that cooperation was stronger than conquests. The construction worker from Denver had built something that would last for generations, a new kind of civilization based on the simple human idea that different people working together could accomplish anything. Emma and her adopted siblings would inherit a galaxy where diversity was valued and every species had something important to contribute. The future looked bright, and Jake Mitchell was ready to keep building it.